Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gyeon. Today is World Food Day, a day to recognize the fundamental right to food and to raise global awareness of the growing threats to food security. Around the globe, nearly 800 million people are going hungry, not because there isn't enough food, but because access is increasingly fragile. Climate change, armed conflict, and inflation are all reshaping how food is produced, priced, and even distributed. For a deeper discussion on this, we are joined in the studio by Angie Lee, Director of the Seoul Global Office at the World Food Program. A big welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So let's delve right in. So today is the World Food Day. In light of this, the issue of food security seems to be even more important than ever nowadays. For our viewers, could you assess the current situation of the global food security?
Sure. So global food insecurity is at a record high level today, with millions of people facing famine in places like northern Sudan, and over 319 million people suffering from acute global hunger across the globe. As you pointed out, there are multiple and overlapping crises that contribute to this worrying trend. But the main driver of hunger is conflict. It disrupts food production, it fuels displacement, putting vulnerable populations even more at risk. The majority of the global food insecure populations actually live in fragile and conflict-affected settings. Now, this is compounded further by economic volatility and high inflation. There are many low-income families across the world who are struggling to put food on the table because food remains very expensive. And then, of course, there are weather extremes that are even compounding these effects. These climate extremes, they cause destruction of crops and livelihoods. And they really complicate things for people who are really making ends meet on a daily basis. This is why we really need to all come together for urgent action and international support to really address the root causes of hunger. And I think this is a nice segue for me to introduce you to the World Food Program, because I suspect that many of your viewers will not be very familiar with our organization. So the World Food Program is the world's largest humanitarian organization and is known to save lives in emergencies. But we also use food assistance to bring peace and prosperity and stability, help communities recover from conflict, disasters, and the impacts of climate change.
Right. So let's hope this could be a good opportunity for, raising awareness to the situation. But let's focus more on the humanitarian impact of this. So in some regions like Somalia, the crisis is really a matter of life and death, a very serious one. Director Lee, we hear that the WFP's decided to, cut food aid to Somalia by more than 2/3. Could you elaborate for us the situation, and what does it say about the state of international responsibility?
Right. In fact, this is really a matter of life and death, and the operating environment has become ever more complex today. The development and humanitarian sector today is navigating an increasingly volatile, challenging and unpredictable funding landscape. A recent OECD study projects a 9 to 17% drop in overseas development assistance in 2025. This will affect disproportionately the least developed countries and also sub-Saharan Africa. And this is why we really need to channel all of our resources and raise the awareness. You cited Somalia, where the World Food Program was forced to dramatically cut the number of people that we support due to critical funding shortfalls. But this is not unique to Somalia only. According to our latest assessments, 6 of WFP's most critical humanitarian operations, alongside with Somalia, including Afghanistan, Haiti, DR Congo, Sudan, and South Sudan, are facing severe pipeline breaks by the end of the year, putting more lives at risk as global humanitarian funding dries up, which is why we are really calling everyone to urgent action. And we really hope that there will be global solidarity coming together to really shed light on the plight of the most vulnerable who are at risk of facing even greater hunger going forward.
Right, very heartbreaking information that we're hearing. But looking at the causes of this, of course, there would be many causes, like you've mentioned. But we hear that climate change is now shaking, very foundations of how we produce and access food. Could you tell us what are the most critical ways it's destabilizing food systems, beyond droughts and floods?
Right. So to better understand what is at stake, we need to look at the context, both in broad and specific terms. Over the past decade, 1.7 billion people have been affected by weather-related disasters. Now, unfortunately, communities who contribute the least to the climate crisis are the ones who are bearing the brunt of the impact of the climate shocks with very limited means to cope. I'm sure you're aware that last year was the hottest year on record. And according to our assessments, approximately 96 million people have been pushed into food insecurity due to climate extremes. And the impact was particularly severe in regions such as South Asia, Southern Africa, and the Horn of Africa. Now, we also need to remember that these climate shocks do not occur in vacuum. They are compounded by economic volatility and, most importantly, by conflict. And this is why it's really important to remember that these compound shocks are really restraining systems and also eroding the resilience of communities. And by resilience, I really mean the capacity to rebound, to bounce back and recover. And so we really need to look at a longer term and sustainable solution, moving away from short-term aid and really investing in long-term resilience. And humanitarian organizations like WFP have a particular focus on doing that in the most fragile context in the world. For example, in the Sahel, we have supported 4 million people with integrated solutions to provide support to rehabilitate ecosystems, to provide enhanced nutrition support, and also to put children back to school, all together resulting in reduced humanitarian needs in the mid to longer term.
Right. So those efforts would be definitely helpful. And, you've mentioned the extreme weather conditions. It's being observed in many parts of the world. In fact, South Korea also experienced a severe drought in Gangneung area. It's a clear example that we're also suffering from that. So from a food security standpoint, Director Lee, could you tell us what kind of concerns could these kinds of severe weather conditions actually bring?
Right. So I think the dilemma really resonates stronger when it hits closer to home, right? And across Asia, recurrent droughts, floods, and typhoons are really disrupting local food systems and livelihoods across the board. For a region that accounts for a majority share of the global agricultural losses at an average of 23% worldwide. Transforming food systems is really essential and urgent. And as I said before, we really need to shift away from short-term aid and think about what are scalable solutions that stick, that really invest in resilient local food systems. Now, in this regard, the World Food Programme has been investing $5.9 billion in local and regional procurement, including $2.1 billion in Africa alone, really directly supporting local food markets and local food systems. And we work with governments, local civil society, private sector, and IFIs to stimulate demand for nutritious local food, but also support inclusive value chain and national programs that really can be bringing impact at scale. For example, in Kenya, WFP is supporting the government in running a national school meals program, which is providing nutritious school meals to over 10 million school kids, but at the same time also supporting local smallholder farmers who have the opportunity to have a stable income in return of supplying fresh local produce to school canteens.
Wow, that would be helpful because that's not just temporary, it's going to be a long-term project, of course. Yes. Now, Director, let's also touch upon the consumer side. We're speaking of, produces. Skyrocketing produce prices are also very concerning. We saw in sharp spikes in staple crops like Napa cabbage and lettuce, spinach, and etc. So do you think these price shocks would be, of course, we're speculating, it will be temporary, or do you think they reflect some deeper, long-term instability in the global food market?
Yes, you're right. I don't think anyone has the crystal ball here, but these food inflations are definitely a reflection of both short-term shocks as well as deeper structural issues in the global food system. And once again, I think we need to look at the context. Now, in an affluent country like Korea, if Napa cabbage is too expensive, consumers would look at alternatives for their groceries because they have that choice. Unfortunately, for many families in the global south who spend a larger share of their income on food, they don't have such choices. And they end up resorting to negative coping strategies such as reducing portions or skipping meals altogether. And so I believe that these trends that we're seeing across the globe is unfortunately not a temporary fluctuation. Food inflation since the pandemic has far outpaced overall inflation levels. And this is really putting a burden on low-income families, especially who are living in fragile contexts. So it is really a sign of systemic fragility. And although the inflation levels have decreased to pre-pandemic levels, there are so many countries where food still remains expensive. So for consumers alike, it will be a growing concern, food affordability and access.
Right, and of course solutions to this would be very important. Speaking of this, the South Korean government has introduced various measures to build resilience, from climate adaptive farming to smart agriculture. And beyond this, in the world stage, there should be international strategies as well, of course. Could you tell us, what kind of international strategies and coordination models are actually needed to secure food systems in this area of, climate disruption?
Right. So technology and innovation are important for sure, but what is really key is anticipatory action. And we really need to move away from reactive response and invest in proactive risk management, reducing losses, preserving dignity, and optimizing resources. I would like to quote the UN's Emergency Relief Coordinator, Tom Fletcher, who has said many times that anticipatory action saves money, time, and lives, and preserves dignity. And if we really want every moment, every dollar, every decision to count, we have to act early and we have to act together. And global evidence confirms that for $1 invested in anticipatory action yields in up to $7 of avoided losses. And so For WFP, we really work closely with governments in setting up anticipatory initiatives at scale. These include building early warning systems that are inclusive, that is, we work with communities on the ground, that cover multi-hazards and that are linked with pre-arranged financing and actions. And in this way, we're able to really see tangible gains in terms of food security. In Nepal, for instance, through anticipatory assistance, we found out that households who received assistance before an emergency occurs had better food security outcomes and had lower debts compared to households who received aid afterwards. And in countries like Mozambique, that is often plagued by natural disasters, prearranged financing and coordination really helped for a timely response and also a cost-effective humanitarian response.
Definitely. So raising proactive measures and also coordinating with other countries would be very helpful in this regard. Now, you've mentioned a lot of efforts that the WFP is doing, but tell us again, what is the role of this WFP Korea office in addressing food crisis in developing countries, and what are your planned future initiatives as well?
Thank you for that question. So WFP is completely voluntarily funded. And our resources come mostly from our government partners and our member states. Now, Korea is really a unique case in point because here's a bit of tidbit history that maybe not many of your viewers might know. Korea used to receive World Food Programme's food assistance for nearly 2 decades until the 1980s. Now today, Korea has become a really major donor to multilateral assistance, and for WFP specifically, last year, it has become the top 5th public donor to WFP operations globally. Now, the trajectory of Korea from once an aid recipient country to a major player of multilateral cooperation is truly remarkable and inspiring. So the goal of WFP Seoul Global Office is really to strengthen the strategic partnership that we have with Korea across the public and private spectrum. We work very closely with our government counterparts, including the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for humanitarian assistance in emergencies. We also work very closely with KOICA for longer-term development projects that invest in school meals and climate resilience. And we also work with the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, who provide Korean rice to refugees and IDPs globally. And I should also mention that we have really exciting partnerships in the private sector with corporates and foundations who help really wield influence and help us also with individual fundraising. So looking ahead, we would like to strengthen and deepen this partnership with Korea. And it's really a win-win partnership because Korea has so much to offer. It has this rich history of overcoming hunger in less than a generation. It has this technological prowess, it has the soft culture power, and it has deep policy expertise. And WFP on its hand has deep field presence, operational capacity, and together I believe that we can really deliver impactful and sustainable hunger solutions worldwide.
Right, so we'll be able to look forward to more of these efforts from the Korea office. Now, Director, as we look to the future of food security, innovation seems very important. Could you tell us what are the most, promising innovations that can help us mitigate the impact of climate change and also ensure sustainable food access for the vulnerable?
Right. So I think it's really easy to get carried away by the glitz and glamour of the term innovation, the silver bullet solution that can tackle the world's gravest issues. I'm more down to earth. I'm a really strong believer of collective expertise and partnerships. And really to address global hunger, we cannot act and think and experiment like a Silicon Valley venture startup. by their mantra of moving fast and breaking things, because if we break things, literally we'll be breaking people and their lives. And so once again at WFP, the engine of innovation is really our country offices. We have a vast presence in over 120 countries and territories. And we're building a network of really hands-on, tangible, innovative country office innovation teams who are better placed to articulate what the problem is that we're trying to solve, right? Because more than often we come with ready-made innovation formulas and we try to find problems for that. It should be the other way around. And we are working closely with our communities to really help address their unique needs in the local context. One example I can give you is our post-harvest loss reduction initiative, which may not sound very fancy, but it does change the lives of hundreds and thousands of smallholder farmers by giving them opportunities for training, access to digital tools, looking at more creative business models, looking at cooperative ownerships, and so forth. And this, for example, in Mozambique, has helped forego up to 1,400 metric tons of potential crop losses. So we're really seeing tangible results. At the global level, WFP is leveraging AI to tackle some of the key operational constraints, such as predicting natural disasters in advance, accelerating disaster response, and also optimizing supply chain planning.
Mm-hmm. So very meaningful efforts done by the organization itself. But for us, individuals, we can't have like big projects, of course. And since it's World Food Day, could you tell us what kind of action could us individuals can take individually and both collectively to kind of safeguard food security in the upcoming days?
Right. Thank you. I mean, yes, we are here because it's World Food Day, but I'm sure for many of us, this is just another normal day. But I hope that we can remind ourselves on World Food Day that food security is really everyone's business. And we really need all the courage and collective wisdom to be able to solve this global challenge. I mean, at a personal level, I would really encourage that you stay engaged in global food crisis issues and global issues writ large. Have conversations with your friends and colleagues and families, and really stay engaged. There are many ways that you can participate. You can donate. You can volunteer, you can campaign, you can even start your own movement in your grassroots communities. So I really hope that we can spark more conversations around this important issue and really show the value of global solidarity.
Right, definitely a very powerful message to close on. Food security isn't just about policy, it's about shared responsibility and action, of course. Director Lee, we'll have to conclude our discussion here tonight. Thank you so much for your time and your insights.
Thank you.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.